Okay, so Mass Effect 5, we had N7 Day. Mike Gamble posted something kind of interesting saying that all of the N7 Day teasers are connected. I want to do a video about it just like everyone else is. Let's get into it. First, if you like Mass Effect, if you want news, speculation, and everything else around the next game, what's going on at BioWare, or just gaming news in general, consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that like button so more people see the video, leave a comment so I know what you're thinking, and if you really want to, consider becoming a YouTube member to get videos just like this one a bit early. So, like I said, Mike Gamble posted this, all of the N7 Day teasers are connected, and I, just like all the other Mass Effect creators, have decided to put together my grand theory. Now, I've seen some of the stuff that other people have been doing, higher quality, better scripted, all that than mine. I'm not going to try to put together like what the story is or try to be declarative in some capacity. I don't know, and I don't think they've given us enough information yet to really know what the story is going to be. But I do think we've gotten a lot of hints, and very likely, if you think back, they've probably only fairly recently set most of the story into stone and stuff like that. So during most of these N7 days, they were still building, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this video into a couple pieces. You should be able to do timestamps if you look for those. I'm going to, as briefly as I can, go through all those teasers and just briefly explain all of them and talk about them. Then jump into my theory, which references back to those teasers, and to kind of talk about what I think we've been shown, how it's all connected, and maybe some of my, maybe unique takes on these things. So let's get into it. We're going to kick it off back on the 2020 trailer. If you want my more in-depth analysis of all this stuff, almost every year I've made a video talking about all the previous N7 Day announcements. Even just a few weeks ago, I released my most recent one, which includes all of this stuff besides the poster that we got in 2025. So if you want my more in-depth analysis, go check those out. We're going to start off here. This is from 2020. This is actually from the Game Awards, not technically N7 Day, but we'll say it's close enough. So this is a trailer where it pops up. It shows the two galaxies here. We have Andromeda in the background, the Milky Way galaxy here. It dives in. We have some audio of some of the early human space travel, stuff like that. Then it goes into First Contact in the Mass Effect universe with the Turians, all that. Then it goes into like Reaper War stuff and all that. What happens after this point is and I want to make a note of this. It says Arc 6 is away. That is interesting because as far as we know, there were only 5 arcs in the Andromeda mission. There is some debate on whether or not the Nexus was considered one of the arcs. So maybe there were 6 arcs if you count the Nexus, but I'm pretty sure most people have kind of dismissed that. But that's also, who knows? It could be anything. What's also interesting is I believe when it gets to this shot here, there is some real garbled audio in the background of this. I have tried everything I can to decipher what's being said. I've tried using like voice decryption programs. I've tried to clean up the audio. I'm not an expert at this stuff. I swear there's there's someone talking about something with a wormhole in this. Keep that in mind for later. This then goes from here to we see this ship. We see this person who ends up being Liara climbing up a dead Reaper with another dead Reaper in the background. We have him leaning down here. She picks up this armor, the shard. It's an N7 helmet. It's the old N7 helmet that Shepard wore. She has some crewmates in the background with the ship. She smiles. She looks maybe a little bit older. We don't know. So that's 2020. Then in 2021, we got a blog that didn't have a ton of information that year, but we did have this, and it was this poster that I'll zoom in a little bit on. You may notice some artifacting until it loads. It has this Mass Effect will continue. That was established here, with this trailer where we had the will continue branding pop up. So they carried that over. We have 4 individuals walking away from this ship, which looks different than the ship that we see here in this shot. I don't think this is the same kind of ship. If it is, maybe they've just adjusted the design or something. I don't know. Closer inspection on this, to me, this sure looks like an Asari, a Krogan in red armor. Take that for what you will. A Turian, and someone in a classic N7 suit of like space armor. When you scroll up, though, what you see is this crater or or like the remnants of an explosion or something. You zoom out, it's pretty obviously a reference to the Geth because it's got the Geth shape. It's got like the little flashlight head. It even has the light effect from the flashlight on their face or whatever you would call it. There's also some bodies around this crater. They're probably Geth. People have gotten real weird and like said, oh, this looks like it's a Quarian, and this looks like this and that. I don't know. This is the only one that's clear to me. There's also, if you mess around with the color levels a bit, right here, you can see there is an N7 right there. Whether this was on purpose or not, I have no idea. We were told by Gary McKay, who's the CEO of BioWare, that there were 5 secrets in here. I feel like people have only like really not locked down 4 of them. So who knows what that 5th one is? I've even contacted the artist who made this for BioWare, and they either really didn't know and just made the things they were told to make, or they are NDA'd and they're not allowed to say, you know, what the secrets were. But take that for what it is. I do want to note for my later conversation, there is this like streaking down here. This doesn't look like it's a clean, safe environment to be in, whether it's toxic or whatever. And then all this streakiness down here, to me, maybe, there's some implication here of there's something bad here. Some people have also said this kind of resembles the Scourge in Andromeda. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but we'll get there. This was from 2022. This was the banner picture. There is some stuff to glean from this. The main things I'll talk about is looking at this shuttle and this sky car look exactly like the trilogy era vehicles. There are multiple brand symbols around here. People have talked about how, oh, those are the same ones from Andromeda. Keep in mind, everything in Andromeda came from the Milky Way, besides the Angaran stuff. So when you have that port in Andromeda with all those shops and all the brands there, those are from the Milky Way. So just throwing it out there. What is interesting here is this Omega symbol, which is indicative of Arya. We'll get to that. There is an Asari on this advertisement here. This is presuming this is maybe it's Ilium or just another Asari planet. We don't know. That's also indicated by, if you see these, this ring, this circle back here, I believe there's another one. I thought there was another one somewhere. If you look on Ilium, there's buildings down on the ground level in Ilium that where you can see these similar lightscapes. So an Asari planet of some type, it has an Omega symbol, and the vehicles look like trilogy era vehicles. Here we had another piece of concept art from 2022. Again, trilogy era sky cars. There's one here. There's some up here. We have a Solarian, a Krogan, and a Turian. Over here, and I think it's just barely, okay, I can bring it. Nope, it's not going to show. There is a sign. It's a solar whatever. It's the same brand or the same shop sign that you see actually in Mass Effect 2 on Omega. So just throwing that out there. Is this Omega? Are these the rebuilt Ezo mines or something? We have no idea. But what is interesting and worth keeping note is that all of these characters appear to be wearing breathing masks. The Solarian, you can see they have a mask on. The Krogan even seems to have some kind of tube here, and the Turian here pretty obviously has a mask on, and then you see its tubes there. So maybe this is a toxic planet. Maybe there's something going on here. Maybe it has something to do with these machines or whatever these things are. But just keep in mind that there's obviously an issue with breathing for the organics here on this planet. And we'll move to the next one. This is the now famous, I guess, relay. So it's even labeled, and we'll look at a picture of it. It's a vacuum dock relay construction. Is what it's labeled down there in the bottom left. This is the video version of it. The only real notable thing about this, the video, is to notice this ship right here. Let's see if I can't remember if it'll replay on its own. Let's do this. So you see this ship is streaking across. I've seen people say that, oh, that looks like the Normandy. Oh, that looks like the Tempest. It's literally a few pixels with an effect, and they're just moving the PNG across the screen. I think we should maybe be careful with how much we speculate there. But when I move over to the picture of this, which is a little higher fidelity, I do want to point some stuff out. So we have that ship right here again. There's a few things interesting here, and I don't have it. This is updated art from, I believe it's one of the art books of concept art, presumably for the next game. And in that art, all these ships look way more futuristic. I don't think it's as clear that it's being constructed. It's way less detailed. And the planet behind it is looks like a mechanical planet almost, with like it looks just like concrete everywhere with like streets or strips of light and stuff like that. That's not what we see here. What we see here, a few things. These ships all appear to be kind of trilogy era looking ships, even from Mass Effect 1. You know, when you would go and do the little side missions where you would, you know, dock to ships and clear them out and do all that stuff. Most of these look like that, with a pretty significant exception here. If you look at these three ships here and this one here above my head, there's also one more beneath me here that you can see right here. These all have the same design as the Nexus, or as the not the Nexus, as the Arcs, where they have those four fins in the back and then like an elongated hull out in front of them. These do not appear to be Arcs. These appear to be way, way, way smaller than that. One thing to consider, which we'll talk about here in a moment when I conclude all this, is I believe the whole point of the Arcs and the Nexus is that they were using this new drive technology that, even though it took them 600 years to get to Andromeda, it was still faster than regular propulsion. And, you know, obviously they weren't able to take mass relays to Andromeda. So my guess is that wherever this takes place, whenever this takes place, they are using that same tech on ships that are in the Milky Way, presumably. It's also worth considering that if they're building a relay, whether this is like a destroyed relay from the Reaper War that they're rebuilding and obviously putting their own sheen on it, they're likely the mass relay network isn't up. So maybe they're using that arc technology to get around the galaxy, since, you know, maybe the mass relays aren't as easy to use, at least at this point. Now they're building a mass relay. That seems obvious here. It's a mass relay design. We've seen this, obviously. Instead of being the Reaper, you know, build of it, this looks to be organic, if not human. Who knows? What's also interesting here is to consider that there are black and yellow colorings all over this. It has MR7. There's been, you know, Mass Relay 7. I've said maybe Mobile Relay 7. That's a different conversation. Those are Cerberus colors. We'll come back to that. And then there is the little thing here of, you know, it has these numbers. I assume these are like docking bays with these docking arms, and it has 1 through 7, and this one is on 4. There was speculation at one point that this was like, oh, it's gonna be Mass Effect 4, not Mass Effect Andromeda 2 or whatever. I don't know. There is also some details down here in the bottom left where it gives some indication of that my theory on this is that this is security footage we're watching, that we aren't actually looking at the ship, we're looking at a video, that there's a reflection of the N7 white, red, and white stripes here, that and there's also some distortion in this picture in general that makes it look like we're looking at a screen, that this record here is actually it's like it's the metadata for a security camera. And you know, that the last thing I'll say about this, I spent the most time on this so far, is that this came with a voiceover of Liara in broken up recordings telling someone that the humans have defied the Citadel Council and that should be expected, blah blah blah. And that the other party, we can't hear what they're saying. It's garbled. A lot of people speculated that means that she's talking to a Geth. That makes no sense. Geth speak to organics in their own universal language. It's more than likely she's speaking to someone who maybe whoever is surveilling here, or has, you know, maybe potentially even gotten a bug in her communication systems. They've been able to break her encryption, or maybe she's along with it, but not the other parties. Okay, let's move on. This was 2023. This was part of the when they teased the trailer. They put out a 3-part trailer that was a total of like 28 seconds long. And these 3 messages here, I have the full trailer we'll look at here in a moment. But there are a few things that are interesting here to consider. So this talks about security breach detected, Contact Systems Alliance. This is when it first showed this N7 agent, and there's this kind of like, okay, why would a N7 agent have to breach the security of the Systems Alliance? Now, maybe they're investigating a breach. Maybe that's what this person's doing. We don't know. But that's kind of interesting. Here we have the access code accepted, tertiary encryption detected, classified review briefing materials on official Alliance comms channels. So it's this idea that maybe this individual has information that they have to, go to the Alliance to look more into. And then the final teaser they had here had Andromeda distress signal detected, year sent redacted, which is, they've been making sure to keep us in the dark about when this next game is going to take place. Audio transcript, although they should know by now not to underestimate human, and I believe it was deception or defiance, I believe. So, okay, so here is that 2023 trailer. So it's really short. It's this, what we find to be an N7 agent walking through this hallway. If you look closely in the background, it looks like they're in like a city, maybe a big spaceport or something. We don't know. I believe you can see like sky cars or shuttles if you look close enough in the background. There is this moment here, which I've only recently caught on to. Here, I'll go back. That right there appears to be a Krogan. And note this light that is likely on their chest. It's kind of hard, let's watch it again. Yeah, that's like a Krogan looking out that window or facing inwards, like leaning against the wall. We have this agent, very clearly has N7 insignias on. We definitely have the kind of iconic looking color scheme. We have the symbol. It's also on the back of the neck. The helmet is something unique we haven't really seen before. Even this armor in general is unique, where it's much less like soldier-ish, but much more kind of maybe agent-ish, which is a term they've used to refer to the fans a few times here. They walk away, they pull out this gun, and they walk out to, presumably, I think everyone has kind of agreed at this point, this is very likely a dock. That's their ship that they're walking out to, and that's kind of all we really have from this one. Now, along with this, we got this poster that was posted, which shows this same agent. We see the N7. We see this kind of what will likely become kind of an iconic armor set here. But what was most interesting of it was this bar scene here in the middle. We see a few things. We see a Turian with Garrus's kind of sighting system or visor. Obviously, Garrus isn't the only one who could use it, but it is kind of iconic to him. Back here, we have a Geth standing kind of like at a guard in front of a table with a Asari who appears to be speaking to an Angaran. That's notable because at no point in the franchise yet have we had a situation where a Geth and an Angaran should be in the same space. So take that for what you will. We have a couple Krogan back here. We have a very chunky Volus right here. We have a gigantic Solarian here as well. There are like a sect of Solarians that are like known for being these giant, monstrous, like beefy dudes. And so maybe that's one of them, because this guy definitely looks bigger than the average Solarian we've dealt with. We have a character here who I've talked about. This to me is almost certainly our first look at a Rowloy. If you go deeper on them, it could be a weird angle on a Turian or something. But to me, it's pretty clearly a beak. And we know that the Rowloy are like a bird-like species. I am still willing to bet this is our first sight of a Rowloy. And that's kind of what I'll get from that. Now, the final thing is here in 2024, we got a couple cosmetics for Dragon Age of the Veilguard. There might be some clues or hints in there. Nothing I thought was important for this video. So I'm jumping to 2025. We didn't really get much from the actual blog and stuff. And, there was some detail, which we'll talk about. But here we have this scene that is labeled Civil War. It's got a bunch of Krogan. This one here appears to be a captain or commander, some kind of senior, member of this group here. You have a whole bunch of Krogan that appear to be like basically foot soldiers. They're all wearing armor that we've never really seen Krogan wear before. These are not spacesuits that we in the trilogy and even in Andromeda mostly saw these creatures in because their eyes are exposed, their skin is exposed here. That's not typical for most of the spacesuits, even though there are exceptions. You have a couple of the Krogan tanks here in the background. You have some architecture here in the background that kind of looks like some of like Tuchanka, or even in Mass Effect 2, like when you do Grunt's Trial, it kind of that facility kind of looks like this. Who knows? It's worth noticing here the weapons they're using are trilogy era weapons, with the main difference being that instead of having that little hologram for the ammo type, here it appears to be some kind of just glowing light on the gun. Maybe this is a different type of gun. Maybe they're using a new source for ammo or something. My guess here is they are probably just using a different way of indicating ammo type. So there's all of that stuff. Let's get into my actual theory. Okay, so bear with me here. I'm going to be going off notes a little bit, and I will do my best to, on the screen here, present screenshots and so on of the things I'm referring to here, but also go back to all of the things I just covered. My theory is that we are going to play in a world state that is shortly after Mass Effect 3, but not right after. We have now gotten some kind of vague sense that the TV show will take place right after Mass Effect 3 or sometime after, and then that is going to be some kind of bridge to the next game. So I wouldn't anticipate the game to be a lot longer after the TV show takes place, but I also presume it's not going to be before or during the same time. I also want to point out back on that Omega symbol with suggesting Arya may still be involved, assuming Arya is still alive. For Arya to still be alive, it's assumed that she's one of the oldest Asari that we saw in the Mass Effect trilogy. And, the theories people have of this next game being 600, 1,000 years after the trilogy, Arya would be dead. She wouldn't still be alive. So maybe there's a successor. Maybe someone takes over after Arya is gone. And maybe that's why we see the Omega symbol on a planet when maybe they've presumably spread out their operations. It's hard to believe, though, that they would allow Omega to exist without Arya. So that's one more kind of tick into the maybe this isn't far in the future. Maybe this is shortly after Mass Effect 3. Arya is still around. We'll see. I think this game is going to take place in the Milky Way. That is still in disarray and chaos after the power vacuum has been left from the Citadel Alliance races all being almost completely destroyed, if not completely destroyed. The Milky Way I throw out there because, as far as I can tell, even though there have been references to Andromeda, we'll get there, every single thing we've seen so far appears to be in the Milky Way. Whether that's because of the locations that we've seen or some of the species that we've seen, or just, even in that very first trailer back in 2020, the camera literally symbolically shows both galaxies and the camera dives into the Milky Way. I take, if all these things are connected, I take that as a significant thing. So what I think is that there is some kind of situation where there is a general toxicity in some or a lot of locations in the galaxy. We know that from seeing masks on NPCs back in that 2021 concept art. We see it in that mass relay concept, that Geth crater poster, where I talked about how it looks like, that may be like a toxic area. Maybe whatever happened there has caused bigger issues in the area. As well as the Krogans in that Civil War picture, all having masks on as well. And there being like an orange kind of hue in the background, which we've seen in bits of the concept art before that as well. What I'm guessing is that there may be a chance that I've thought for a long time Destroy will end up being made canon because it's just the easiest way to move the franchise along. And since in that 2020 trailer, we've seen Dead Reapers, multiple Dead Reapers be shown to us already, I'm wondering if there's going to be some situation where, there's all these Dead Reapers. There's, maybe those Reapers are toxic. Maybe after they've been there, they're deteriorating and they're causing issues in the galaxy. We also have to consider that even like on Earth, we know, and I believe other planets as well, that when they were processing organics to build their new Reaper for that cycle, that was a toxic thing. It was ruining planets, it was ruining areas. And so very well, we may have a bunch of these planets ruined during that, the process of using those organics for this purpose. It may have destroyed many of these worlds that previously they were all able to live on. Now they're all wearing masks. Maybe that's one of the issues we need to deal with. I think that's a newer one that I hadn't really considered before, that the fallout of having these presumably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of dead Reapers and their various foot soldiers and all of the creatures that they had, turned into their own foot soldiers, all of that would come at a cost. That would be a caustic event for all the planets that they were on and that they used to recruit all of those, unwilling participants. We know that some portion of humanity has gone against the Citadel Council. That's specifically talked about in the mass relay concept art, or that little video where Liara is talking, and it's brought up again in that 2023. It talks about the defiance, human defiance thing in that text, and that tells me that either the entirety of humanity or a group has made them mad. I could see that going one of two ways. I could see that the Alliance recognizes that, they kind of saved the galaxy, obviously with lots of help, but specifically with Commander Shepard, they stopped the Reapers, and they could be kind of, quote unquote, high on their own supply, where they might be like, hey, we're the big dogs now. You guys held us down. You tried to keep us out of power, and now we're the reason everyone's still here. So we're just going to do whatever we want. Screw the council, screw the Citadel Council. We're the Alliance, we're humanity, we can do whatever we want. We saved this place, we're going to run things now. Or I think there's also a possibility that some kind of splinter group off of humanity, potentially like former Cerberus folks and stuff like that, could be the ones that are being referenced specifically here. Maybe the Alliance is still working with the Citadel Council, but maybe there are groups of humans, or a large number of humans, who have said, no, screw them. They didn't want to help us. They didn't help us until they had to. We're going to do our own thing, and we're going to build a mass relay. We're going to build our own relay network that only we can use, or maybe for some other, more nefarious purposes. I think that definitely feels possible. We saw it from that 2022 teaser with the mass relay. It's in Cerberus colors. My best speculation on that is that was a project maybe Cerberus was working on before the Reaper War even ended, and then it just didn't get finished. And now, post Reaper War, where all the mass relays are presumably destroyed, or at least not fully functional, maybe they're taking things into their own hands, which would obviously probably upset the Citadel Council. We'll have to see from there. If it is a splinter group, you would presume the N7 agents or soldiers would be used by the Alliance to investigate what's going on and see what they're doing. That 2023 trailer, that individual is presented as not like a super soldier, but instead maybe more of like a 007 type, spy or investigator or something like that. I actually don't think that character it was presented there as being like the protagonist. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's someone that we interact with, or an NPC in the future game. I think that a big theme in the next game is probably going to be everyone trying to fill these power vacuums, all of the civilizations trying to recover, lots of corporations and groups trying to take advantage of the weakness of a lot of the different parts of the galaxy and in the more traditional power structures. We're going to see a lot of meddling and a lot of people trying to get theirs while the getting is good, right? So one thing I want to point out, and this is kind of new, I don't think that this is going to necessarily have like a big bad. Like, for example, the Krogan thing. So one thing that these agents could be investigating is who is pushing this new Krogan civil war that's happening. So, maybe in this world state, we find out that the genophage has been cured, the Krogan are repopulating like crazy, things are going good, and then they weren't. And then they started fighting for no good reason. It seemed like that wasn't going to be a problem because they had the right power structures there. So maybe one of the things that we dive into is, why is there a civil war happening? In many conflicts and many civil wars, even in the real world, there tends to be outside players. So, whether it's other superpowers or regional powers. Maybe they're supporting one side of a civil war for their own gain, and the other side's being supported by others in a proxy war type thing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what's happening here in that civil war picture. And I think that would be really cool. I think that'd be a really cool way to handle that. And, maybe the Civil War isn't the main issue going on in the game, but it is one of the things that's being addressed, one of the things that we deal with, right? So I think that one of the things that we could be going into is, not having like one big bad. There's not going to be a new Reaper presence, probably not even like a true like Cerberus presence, even though I think it could be cool to still include them as kind of like a behind the scenes, like, group of bad guys who are like posing as a corporation or something and are still meddling, right? What I think is they could do the whole next game and not even present a big bad, maybe allude to one, hint to one, but what they could do instead is kind of show us the event in this recovering galaxy. I think them showing Liara already is great to have like an anchor character to the trilogy. We've had Liara in that first teaser in 2020, and then again in that recording, we actually got her voice, which was super cool, especially if you think about it. But other than that, it's probably gonna be a new cast of characters. Every time we see a Krogan or something like that, and I've done it myself, everyone's like, oh, that's Rex, oh, that's Garrus. Like, I mean, maybe. I'm not against it. I'm one of the people who would love to play as Shepard again, who would love to have the old crew, maybe add some new people in and go on some more adventures. I also think there's a pretty good chance they're going to try to move on from that, but still retain, maybe we do see some of the old crew. Maybe we get references to them. We have Liara that can connect us to these people, and there are some characters that could still be alive, even if this game does take place a long time after the trilogy, even though I don't think it does. So keep that in mind. So that's kind of the world state I'm seeing this in. Now, the biggest weakness of all of these predictions I have is that it doesn't address the Andromeda references, which there are some. I don't hate Andromeda the way some people do. I also kind of dislike it because I hate that it's putting handcuffs on the future of the franchise. It has to be acknowledged. And I just kind of wish Andromeda would have come later. I wish that they would have been able to make one or two games after the trilogy to maybe connect it to an Andromeda type game instead of them just doing Andromeda and then now they have to figure out how to make it all work. That said, we have multiple Andromeda references. In that 2020 trailer, we have the Arc 6 is the way. I've already talked about that. Maybe Arc 6 is like the Nexus or not. I don't know. We don't really know for sure. It seems likely maybe they sent more Arc missions that we haven't found out about and during Andromeda. Maybe they happened after the Reaper War or something. Who knows? We'll have to figure that out. And then also in that 2023 poster of that Angaran with a Geth, like that's a situation that should never happen. Maybe that little bar scene in the body of that agent is just some fan service. Maybe it was just there to kind of bait us into not knowing what's going on. I don't know. But also in that 2023 trailer, in the lead up to it, in those websites, it specifically talks about a distress signal from Andromeda, and it, of course, redacts the date. Maybe there was an arc that tried to go and got stuck in the Milky Way and never even got out. Maybe that's going to be a plot point. Maybe that's the Quarian one, even though I think the book for Andromeda suggested the Quarian arc did make it to Andromeda, just not to, it didn't meet up with all the other ones, got stuck somewhere else. Who knows? I think that the tough part about trying to bring Andromeda into this is that you have to get into some pretty crazy theories in order to make that make sense. I think the only thing I can do to try to justify something wild is in that 2020 trailer when I talked about that there's that little audio segment that no one really knows what they're saying. They mention wormholes. Maybe they're going to try to do something weird with time travel or something like that. I'm not, or multiverse, heaven forbid. I don't know. I'm not really a fan of that, but I think it's worth throwing it out there. I think what we've seen so far in every single one of these things is I've just seen nothing that truly indicates to me that I'm supposed to believe that this world state we've been presented in 4 or 5 of these in 7 days and these teasers and this art and stuff we've seen, nothing about that yet has screamed to me, look how futuristic this is. Look how this is 600, 1,000 years later. And I've had people push back and say like, oh, well, maybe technology stagnated after the war. And maybe that's a Possibly. Who knows? I doubt it though. If anything, I think that all these dead reapers around with these millions, if not billions of years of information in them from all the different cycles and all the, history and all of the technology that would be stored in these things, assuming you can extract it, would, if anything, it would propel, advancement in all the technologies and stuff like that. I have no idea. I'm just sticking to the whole idea that so far, I have no reason to believe that this next game is going to take place way after the trilogy. And that just means that for me, I have to try to formulate how they would fit all this stuff in there together, and especially the Andromeda problem, which honestly, I don't have an answer for. And that is the gist of my theory in 30 plus minutes. If you've listened to all of this, then thank you so much. This isn't as tight and as well done as a lot of the other creators you're going to see. Respect to them. Go check out their videos. They're like tight 15s or whatever. I'm a ranter. I'm a talker. And I'm also not willing, like, I don't believe in any of this stuff enough to be like, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going on. And so I think it's easier to just throw out a bunch of ideas and then here in, 3, 4, 5 years, I hope not, look back at this and say, hey, I was right about that. I was wrong about that. I'm sure I can do that video one day. Let me know what you think about all of the theories. If you think I missed something important, if you think I'm off base on something, make sure to hit that up in the comments down below. If you want more of these Mass Effect videos, if you want more speculation and news coverage and stuff of Mass Effect, BioWare, or just gaming in general, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button so more people see the video. And if you really like what I'm doing, consider becoming a YouTube member where you get videos like this one just a bit early. Check out the links in the video description for my other content and ways to support what I'm doing. That's all I have for this one. So until next time.